Welcome back, grade 12s. I'm just going to go through very quickly. We are busy with our strategies, and I covered off the generic strategies in the previous video. So if you've missed that, please go back there and have a squiz. We are now going to continue with the second strategy that you could do in a company, and that is called corporate strategies. So corporate strategies is made up of two. This is a really nice question. If they ask you to do corporate strategies, you need to be able to talk about any one of these main headings and then the three elements that fall under those main headings. So corporate strategy, you've got corporate combination strategies, and you've got decline or defensive strategies. So we're going to look at a joint venture, a merger or a merge, takeover, retrenchment strategy in your decline or defensive, divestiture, and liquidation. Okay, so I have found some current affairs that you could talk about because even in your section B, where you have to talk about that, they could ask you to explain a corporate strategy or a joint venture. If you bring in an example, they're going to give you that mark for that, as long as you've defined what it is. So a joint venture is exactly that. It's where two companies come together in an agreement. They're not taking over one another. They will still maintain their brand, but it just works. Think of Krispy Kreme and Checkers. It works. They're not fighting against one another, and it was one good brand with another good brand that's merged. So what I found in joint ventures under corporate combination, H&M South Africa marks the 1-year anniversary of its collaboration with fashion e-commerce retailer Superbalist. The partnership was initiated on the 22nd of February 2023, and it really ensured that H&M could have an online presence. How wonderful that you know that you can actually buy from an H&M on Superbalist. And there's method in that madness, because when you go onto Superbalist's shopping and you're looking for H&M, you're going to be exposed to a whole lot of Superbalist brands, which hoping you're going to then buy as well as an H&M. So let's have a look at what that article said. It said, by joining Superbalist's curated world of brands, customers have the convenience of shopping thousands of fashion-forward H&M styles online for all, as well as modern interior decor for H&M Home. So if you had to come up with a strategy, say they've said, Mr. Price is really not doing well, please talk about a corporate strategy that they could undertake. You could possibly say a strategy for Mr. Price is to have a joint venture with Takealot. That Mr. Price actually has a section on Takealot that while people are shopping everything else, they can shop for Mr. Price clothing. The second heading that falls under corporate combination is a merger. Now, joint ventures are created on a short-term basis and mostly for short projects. So you would then say, let's go into a JV for the next 2 years. On the contrary, mergers and acquisitions are long-term strategies. Whereas mergers and acquisitions have no time limit, a joint venture partnership usually has a defined time. So that is the difference between your joint venture, mergers, and acquisitions. What did I find? Again, it's the merger between two of the biggest e-fashion platforms. This was in 2018. Superbalist and Spree merged together, and this was announced. Another one that also merged was Takealot and Kalahari.com. I don't think Kalahari, I think it was called .com, but you probably won't remember Kalahari. It was, you could actually buy online books. You could buy books for the first time online, and they merged together. So here we have two fashion brands making sense, and they've had a merge. Possibly a strategy could be for a merger is maybe Mr. Price and Tacky Town merging so that you have a better sneaker offering in Mr. Price, and then Tacky Town would have more distribution, more stores that they would be able to sell their shoes. The next one, which is still under corporate combination, is called a takeover. Now, a takeover is a process where one company makes a successful bid to take control of or buy another one. In an acquisition, one company buys another company, which may or may not involve the consent of the target company. In a takeover, the acquiring company takes control of the target company without its consent. So that is the difference. Acquisition can be with consent or without, but generally an acquisition is with consent. But a takeover, there's no consent. You are taking over, you are buying it over. So they generally then retrench everybody that's there, bring in their new people, and it then becomes part of a whole new culture. So let's have a look here. Clothing retailer Pepkor, which is Pep, explores a takeover of South African rival Edgar's. Pepkor is looking to sell more women's clothing and cosmetics. They are also Africa's largest clothing retailer and are expanding in Brazil. Okay, so this is going to be your example. This was pulled in December the 7th, 2023, is that retailer Pepkor is exploring a takeover of Edgar's. And they don't have to have any consent. They would just buy it over because remember, Edgar's was in big trouble or is in big trouble. Their debts exceeded their assets, so they had to be bailed out and they had to be helped. I've got that in one of my beginning fashion retail videos that I've done where I actually took you through the whole Edgar's case study. Go have a look at that. Very interesting. Okay, cool. Now, under corporate strategy, let's have a look at our second heading, which is a decline or defensive strategy. And the first decline or defensive strategy that companies do is called a retrenchment strategy. Please use the wording Section 189 of the Labor Relations Act. This is a retrenchment strategy. So what does Section 189 of the Labor Relations Act allow? It permits employers to dismiss employees for operational requirements. Remember, in your Labor Relations Act, you have to prove that your company is no longer able to support and pay these people, that you are not making money. There's a whole lot of rules that you would have had to follow. You have to make sure that everybody knows about it, that you've put a notice up, that you have tried your level best to get the company out of this poopy situation. Okay, so you are going to talk about a Section 189 of the Labor Relations Act when it comes to retrenchment strategies. Have a look at your example, or an example that I found. South African clothing retailers losing luster in face of Shein juggernaut. So with Shein coming on board and taking a lot of market share away from our local fashion retail stores, they would have to look at a retrenchment strategy. They would have to. And maybe they've already started doing it. I mean, if you look into, I was in Truworths the other day, there's not too many people on the floor anymore. There's not too many people that can help you. 5, 10 years ago, it was a very different situation. Last week, Takealot's Superbalist announced it had commenced a Section 189 process to restructure its business. Days earlier, Takealot, clearly twitching about global Amazon's pending arrival, announced it was trialing an on-demand service which offers customers in Durbanville, Parow and surrounds in northern Cape Town a selection of about 500 products which will be delivered within the hour. The NASPA's own Takealot group, comprising Takealot.com, Mr. Price, and Superbalist, is under pressure. Not only is it yet to post a profit since its launch in 2011, so it has not made money. The group reported a 22 million rand, that's a 407 million rand loss. So Takealot does sell clothing, so you could obviously use Takealot in your examples as well, but this is a good current affair to use. If they are having these huge losses, they have to put together a retrenchment strategy and start moving out people, assets, to try and bring down some costs. The second heading in your decline of defensive strategy is called divestiture. So we've done retrenchment, we're now doing divestiture. Now, divestiture is a strategic move that companies use to sell off or spin off a part of their business. When you are looking at a big business and you've got a whole lot of brands and you're not making profit, you start divesting. You start trying to sell it off to someone else because someone else would be interested in buying over that brand so that they can carry on doing what they need to do. You would then focus on what you're good at and focus on the current brands that you've got. So I picked up one in 2021, Adidas plans to divest Reebok brand from its stable. The last one underneath our decline or defensive strategy is called liquidation. Now, if a business is bankrupt, it results in liquidation. What does this mean? When you need to remember, it's all about your ratios. You need to have more liquid. You need to have money. So what are you going to be doing? You're going to be selling off your assets to pay the debt of the business. And unfortunately, the business then ceases to exist. So when I try to find some examples for us, I saw that in Sandton City, the Italian luxury group Prada shut its only store in South Africa during lockdown. So it was not making money. That it had opened its doors 5 years ago. It had to sell down, and then they would liquidate. They would sell off all their stock in order to pay debt. Edcon dodges liquidation, so they managed to dodge liquidation. South Africa's iconic Jet and Edgar's fashion brands live to see another day, and thousands of jobs are likely to be saved in the process. And that was something that I found in 2020. Okay, grade 12s. Our next strategy is going to be looking at growth, and that is quite an important one. The growth strategy is something that you do use in corporate. All of this you use in corporate. If you're going to be going into corporate, if you're doing a business degree, all of this will be coming back to you. One of my grade 12s, she was second year varsity, she said, "Ma'am, I've actually kept all my notes because we just do this in marketing year 2. So don't get rid of any of your notes, grade 12s, especially if you're going into business." Have an amazing, amazing day. Keep well. Look after yourselves.